Welcome, everyone, to another media review. There's an awful lot, and I'm going to start posting these more frequently here, of these, well, not really occult, but they're metaphysical, or I don't know what you call them. They cross into the occult sciences. Of course, done by Hollywood buffoons who know absolutely nothing except what they've read in the National Enquirer. And, of course, the stuff that gets on television, particularly in this area, tends to be the lowest of all levels because the people involved with it know nothing and they don't want anybody who knows something because they lose control. But moving past that, let's go with one that just came out recently on the E channel, cable E network, called The Hollywood Medium with Tyler Henry. And I guess this is kind of like the late night talk shows. I guess they expect to go to different mediums in Hollywood. And, of course, it's a showcase. And you got to remember, everything's about money and publicity. And everything is scripted to some extent or another, no matter what it is. And like with illusionists and other things, when they have an interview, they'll cut it up to make the person who's doing the reading look better. And if they don't read somebody right, they'll edit that completely out. Well, you didn't look too good here. We'll just cancel that entire interview and filming we did there. Or what they'll do is take the few things you got right and edit out all the other ones, just like these street magicians who fail a lot of the time. They've done this to 100 people, and the people they were successful with, 5, 10, or whatever percentage it is, and they've got the reaction that they want from that person, that's the one they show you. So they just don't go on the street and show you exactly in real time. So I don't know how many people don't think about this because there's the illusion of how TV and semi-documentaries are shown to you, that you think this is real time, that this is, they got these amazing results or reactions from that. It may not be at all. And the whole thing could be scripted, which and most of these shows are. Now, he goes around and talks to different Hollywood, quote, stars and gives them psychic readings. And, after the first one or two shows like this, it's really boring because it's not your life. And, the only thing that keeps you interested is, wow, is he correct or not? And, of course, I'm sure they'll throw in a few incorrect things, but the show is all about raw, not about reality. And the stars go on there, and they're paid at least what's scale, which is required by the Screen Actors Guild, which I'm not sure what it is now, $800-900, maybe more than that, maybe $1,200 now. So they get for showing, and of course it's free publicity. They go on these things because their face is out there, and people see that, and as such, it helps them in whatever they're doing, or it lets the Hollywood world know, hey, I'm still alive, I haven't done that much, or whatever it is, but here I am. So they make some money, they do that, they go to their home, etc. It may not be their real home, it may be somebody else's home that they go to that film at, what you don't understand is that everything is fixed in Hollywood. You don't necessarily want somebody coming to your real home and tramping around it with a bunch of wires and 10 people and a crew. You probably don't want that on TV either. So, you go to somewhere else. Or they'll show a front of a building which isn't yours and then a different room when you get in. So, everything is there. And as he said, a lot of it is scripted because you don't want to sit there and say, gee, you're a dumb medium. How did you get a TV show? You haven't even figured out anything. So, all of these things, and of course, you got to remember when you interview regular people or Hollywood stars, regular people want to be on television. They've done this with hidden camera shows. Where, they give them a terrible product, and they know that if they spit it out and say, ooh, that tastes like garbage, where did you get that? Well, that's not going to be on TV. So they eat it and say, wonderful, because they think, first of all, they probably make some money from it, and secondly, hey, I get to be on TV. So this is the way people act in the TV industry, and the movie industry is well aware of this. Then you get the ringers. Well, obviously the Hollywood stars here aren't going to make you and your TV show look bad. They want to be on TV too. They want to make the little money they make from it or get the publicity. So they play the game. It's like an engineered, scripted event. So the whole idea is that, and it is scripted to a large extent, even in a psychic reading like this. They're going to guide things. They're going to tell you what they talk about. They're going to have the questions ahead of time. They may go through a whole psychic reading before they actually televise the one that they actually film, so that they know the things they got correct, and they will repeat it. Not just give a cold reading that's filmed. So you got to understand that. It's all scripted. It's all engineered. They know better than you. This is not about reality. This is about them making money. This is about them having a successful show. They want their person to be looked in a particular fashion, and that means that's how the show is put together. They have... So it's very important that you understand that from anything. And this is how all media is done, not just TV and movies. Everything is given to you in a particular fashion, the way that they want it to be seen. All information is like that. All history is like that. But, of course, the grossest and most terrible things of it all is when you get into TVs and movies, which... there's always some really gems, but they're all constructed for a particular reason. And you can never believe anything there because everything is faked. And, the funny thing about it is that, people, well, you can't keep secrets. I heard G. Gordon Liddy say this with some other idiot, buffoonish slob that he was interviewing. Oh, you can't keep any... You can't keep secrets? Is that right? Well, why don't we sit down, old Gordon Liddy, and let's talk about all your FBI cases. Oh, I can't talk about that. Oh, yeah, right. So you're keeping secrets. Everybody keeps secrets, and they keep it from the lowest to the highest level. Nobody knows what goes on behind the scenes, even in a fast food restaurant, and how they handle your food and anything, because everything is kept on the down low because people don't want to know that, and it's part of the secrets of that business, how things are done. And people don't know how things are done. So everything is a secret. Everything is within an industry, and the people protect that because they live off of it. If you want your job at a fast food restaurant, you're not going to tell everybody that nobody washes their hands after they take a shit, because nobody will eat that food and you'll be out of a job. So, people need to understand these are how people live. So the people at the top get very rich, and the people underneath are more than happy to support them because that's how they survive. Let's get real. But, I don't think anybody understands this factor of it and just how everything is engineered in the Hollywood TV business. It's also, tape is about minutes and seconds. So the whole idea is that everything is scripted down to fit in that time slot. They have to. So everything is to the minute, and everything is priced to the minute. What does it cost when you're making a film to do this and go there? Everything is priced down. That's what producers do. So, and nobody understands that because they're not in the business, and the people in the business are not going to relatively share this with anybody. And we've seen this with all the fake shows, Big Brother, where they're reading off of monitors. It just goes on and on. It's all scripted, plain and simple. Now, let's get into this show, the Hollywood Meeting. Now, this Tyler Henry guy apparently is 18 years old. And of course, it's hard to say. The scripted show that we have here makes him seem to be talented. I'm assuming he's a pretty good psychic. And he's, of course, carrying forward the psychic occult stereotype. He's 18 years old. He's as gay as you get. He's a kid. He knows nothing about the world or anything else. I find it very hard to believe that someone that young can give anybody else much insight. But he's just being fed information, talking to spirits, all those things. And, the show is, the only way that the show is interesting is that if he appears to be correct most of the time. The problem with that is it's very boring. And it's also not realistic. So everybody that talks to him say, oh, well, you found something nobody else knew about. I was a skeptic. Now I talk to you and it's amazing. So, and this is true. And there's a lot of mediums who seem to be able to bring in this type of information. I don't really know that much because I haven't tested that many of them. I've been to several and they were not very good for me personally, and were unable to identify things around me and people I was investigated with. But I'm not a good case for that because I'm a destined magical person, which is much different than the average person who is a victim of fates and just out there living. So it's a little bit bad for me, but in general, when I listened to others, they weren't all that correct. But I don't know. I would have to research this yet again. But, it's the same old show. The gay tweet guy is going around, and he's got some British girl who's known for doing Big Brother in England, driving him around. He is over 16, but I guess she's his driver. Who has absolutely no metaphysical or occult background whatsoever. She's a little bimbo from the UK, which is really typical that American jobs go there, but you won't see Americans in the UK. So, same old story, but no need to comment on that endlessly. It's just kind of annoying. But Americans are stupid, so whatever. It's all about coming to America and raping it and then going back to their own country and laughing at you. And of course, this is the way it is common. So what she does, other than sit there and go, surprised she can figure out how to drive an American car and navigate the freeways, which I find, I'm sure somebody else is doing that for her. She got a little in, or whatever she did to get in Hollywood. So he goes around, and of course, he's shockingly correct with all these people in a very low mentality way because he's 18 years old and lives in a particular sheltered gay environment. So I don't know how you can relate to other people from that all that much, but as he said, it's just getting information supposedly from spirits. One of the people he talked to on this, I believe the first or second episode, was Snooki from the Jersey Shore TV show, which was supposed to be about a bunch of Italians going to resorts of the Jersey Shore. And what's amusing is that here's another Hollywood thing, just to demonstrate how fixed Hollywood is that show, which was supposed to be full of Guidos, only one person in the show, one or two of them, was even full Italian. Snooki, the little freaky girl that, of course, had this little game that she played there that the producers set her up as the horny girl that couldn't get laid, is 100% Peruvian. Wojo, whatever her name is half Irish and half Italian. One of them, I forget his name, he was half Puerto Rican, half Italian. And, of course, I believe the situation was full Italian and the other guy, but I'm not entirely sure. But I think those are the only two that really are. So they weren't really even full Italians. So one was not an Italian at all. Snooki was adopted, and she's from Peru. And if you see her now, she looks very Peruvian. So, but I guess if you're adopted and you get an Italian name, you're Italian. So, which is insulting to the Italians. But in general, this is the problem I have with the show is, of course, it's boring. Other people's psychic readings are not interesting. I'm surprised these shows stay on as long as they do because, I guess you find out about that person's life, so, and you talk about their relatives, and then you get a bit of their life from it, so they're semi-informative. But if you want to know anything about those celebrities, and if any of that is true, but regardless, that's how it is offered to you. But the problem here is the typical stereotypical, and there is another show which I will cover here briefly in another audio, which is following psychics in the UK, and we've run into this same type of problem here, where they're portraying metaphysical and occult people as these homosexuals, which there is a fair amount, there seems to be some sort of interest. I'm not sure why homosexuals seem to be gifted with some occult skills. And I don't know if it's all that true or it's just those are the only people that go into it. They're alternative. They don't care. Homosexuals can accept this and are not mentally blocked as much because they're already shunned by society. So to say that you're an occultist or a psychic is something on your side, not against you. So, as I've said a million times, if you come to your family and tell them you're gay, you'll get a better reception than you come to your family and tell them you're practicing magic. Your likelihoods of not being thrown out being gay in this day and age, I would think, is much higher than if you're an occultist because, well, you're not into Jesus, you're worshiping Satan. I don't think there could be anything worse that most people look at. So, so the stereotype is put across here. This person is so young and so, in his own way, highly dysfunctional. It's really hard to take someone seriously. And is the channel any good if they have such a lifestyle that is, just being that young and living a sheltered life is a problem. So, and then, of course, how do they interpret certain things when you're only 18? You haven't had that life experiences. When you're gay, you only understand a certain segment of relationships. It's all very, very questionable of where the value. But of course, you edit, you pitch your pace, you throw in things, you write scripts, and you make things much more interesting than they are. And I'm amazed how some of the most ridiculous shows have been on for so many years. Like Finding Bigfoot, who's going on, and they've never found Bigfoot or any trace of it, but for 8 seasons, they've still got these people, and people are watching it. So, but here we go again with the Hollywood meetings with this Tyler Henry. And it's, as I said, it's that typical thing, and there's really absolutely nothing to learn from this show whatsoever as an occult scientist. It's not really even interesting. As I said, whatever contact he makes with spirits and how it's contrived for this TV show is not good research because it's just that, it's contrived. We don't know how accurate he is with spirits, and of course everybody wants to hear from their relatives and so forth, but how accurate that is, and it's just not interesting to you personally. Talking to somebody's dead mother or father may be very important and soothing and interesting to that person, but I don't really care. And I can't judge it as an occult scientist for research purposes if they're correct because of what's going on in the contrived and scripted interviews that these are. So, was those shocking facts he got in 2 areas amazing when he struck out in 20 others? We just don't know. What we can derive from the general subject matter here, unless it's 100% fraud, is the fact that there are, again, this whole subject comes up, which is fascinating, of spirits, their interaction with the living. And how are you able to ascertain people's names and communicate, even on the most basest levels, with spirits and everything else if they are not viable energies? And this is proof that there is. Now, regardless of how doctored this is, he is communicating with passed over spirits and able to get names and the usual stuff that you get. Well, your mother liked to wear pink and she went to the Rotary Club on Tuesday. How would they possibly know that? Something is happening here. Now, it's either a form of time traveling, going into the past and psychically or biophysically reading somebody, meaning obviously that person's, in your mind, let's say your mother wore pink all the time, that's in your consciousness, and that she went to the Rotary Club every Tuesday or Wednesday is in your mind. So is the actual medium reading your mind, which again is amazing in itself, Or is it actually connecting with a spirit that used to be physically here on this plane, but is still connected to this plane? And there's no reason why you wouldn't be connected to this plane, considering that you're going to reincarnate, and very few people ascend. So since they don't ascend, their energies would still be here. And I believe that everybody leaves some part of their energy here permanently anyway, even if you do ascend. There's an energy vibration that is there. And you should be able to, if you have that skill or developed it, to tap into that energy or that vibrational, very select field, which is unique from any other energy on the planet. One particular person is unique, 100% unique, is not like any others. So it's a matter of just finding that, and you find that through the person that you are working with. There's no reason why that shouldn't be. And the whole idea is there's been rumors that, you can even film these things with cameras, that you tune into the vibrations where you can see pictures of the past. So it's certainly fascinating, and that's in the as an occult interest, what we can gain from this particular series. Of that, the fact is that if you do find of any interest in watching, you want to look at, well, what does that mean that he knew this person's name? And you want to think about that, not the junk you're being told here. Well, the fact is someone was able to tell somebody about something that we assume they knew nothing about. And get information. That person worked as a bus driver all her life, was a waitress, was an actor, whatever it is. I mean, that's pretty stunning when you're not reading the person in front of you, but you're reading the people that they were connected with. Remember, the name of the show is Hollywood Medium, and mediums talk to the dead and those who have departed. Physically dead, they're not, that's another term where you think everything is gone. They're physically gone, which is what death is. Spiritually and energy-wise, well, that's not the case at all. And of course, that's what you need to take from any series like this, is that here is yet again, and there seems to be masses of this information coming through. And of course, it has to be carefully filtered, because this is about making money, people. This is how people survive. This is how their kids get shoes, they get a house over their head, they get a car, and they get food in their belly. Is because they have a successful show. And the more successful it is, the more of that junk they get. So it's not a case of just the fact of, well, we'll move on to something else. Well, there may not be something else. This is their whole life. You got to keep that in mind. So everything is rigged to that extent. But in the bigger picture, with all these spirits and ghost shows that are by, there must be 20 or 30 of them that have come in the last few years that are talking to spirits, seeing spirits, recording them in pathetic manners. But the point is that, and of course, if we rule out that 90% of this is complete nonsense and created, there's still that interesting factor of what's going on. And if spirits are real, if they're able to manifest in these ways, if they're able to communicate to certain people, what does that mean to you as an occult scientist? And what value do these energies have to us that we can gain more gnosis from? So it's all very, very interesting in that kind of way to ponder. So what is the ramifications? If this is real, how does that affect an occult scientist? And what does that tell us? That some people seem to be able to communicate shockingly precise information from people's relatives that have passed. Not psychic reading you, not psychic reading someone who's still alive, but actually communicating with those who have passed from the physical. So this is the bigger subject that's going on here, and if you take it at face value, this guy is able to do this with everybody. So it's not something special. It's not this one person that has their mother hanging around them. It's everybody. has somebody there, and numerous people there that come through or assisting, who are guardian angels, who are maybe filtering you information and helping you day to day at some level. And of course, you can't live in that occult world where you see all this stuff. That's in the movies and the comic books. You can't mentally handle the non-physical with the physical. People can't do that. So we live in, as occult scientists, we do that as best we can. But, people are very frightened and become mentally disturbed by hearing things or seeing things that are not really there. It's too difficult for your consciousness to tolerate. Now, if you're a homosexual who's already been branded and confused by society, and I don't know what chemical and mental changes happen to cause homosexuality, something is going on. It is not a natural state because everything has to reproduce. Now, I have no problems with homosexuality. I could care less. Whoever you decide to have sex with is your business. And I wish people could choose their sexuality. You're forced on that sexuality. That's something you choose. You may adapt at times because of particular situations. But the fact that you can even adapt is strange and so forth. But generally, it is not something people choose. I think that's a nonsensical way of talking. But, people who say that you do that, and particularly in America, well, I thought that was all about freedom. Shouldn't you have the freedom of that? And particularly that, shouldn't you? Oh, well, that's where, again, we're the freedom people, which means freedom for them and oppression for you. But I don't want to diverse too much here. But something seems to be going on there. We have to a certain extent, as a researcher, we have to understand of why. Is this just a social thing that they're rejected and grasp things? Because I've looked into all these things of finding out, it's amazing when you look at society how people take a certain aspect of their life and they think that's perfectly okay, yet are super conservatives. And what's happened here is with these things is this whole wave of right-wing conservative Republican pagans. One of them, who actually took over improperly the Spitzlot order, turned it into a homosexual order, who's a military, black, homosexual Republican living in Texas, involved in a homosexual magical sex cult, and he thinks that's okay. Now, the point is that this kind of thing is quite common. I've seen this in the magical and pagan movement, that it's gotten so much into society now that you get these conservatives, or people with conservative views who follow magical and occult traditions. The problem with that is that conservatives, if they had their way, would have all of us on a noose or an electric chair for our beliefs. Their beliefs, which are based in their Bibles and their stupid documents, all state that people like us, occultists, should be murdered. There's not there, and these people have no problems talking with their Christian neighbors and hiding their magical beliefs. And of course, I'm a Buddhist. Oh, that's okay. They're all Buddhists. Like Steve Jobs, the scumbucket that he was, the lying freak and the evil person that he was, how he screwed so many people at his company and refused to pay for illegitimate children. He was a Buddhist. He was balanced and pure. Buddhism is a shithole belief. And particularly American Buddhists or Western Buddhists seem to be the crappiest of them all. Never met a Buddhist, particularly a Western Buddhist, who wasn't a scum, a bucket of the lowest degree. But I diverse yet again. But the point is that we need to understand, what is this about that? Does it just open up their perceptions to the world that they, I'm gay, everybody hates me? Well, believing in metaphysics or having these abilities come with this being shunned. So it's something that does need to be some research. It appears that there are a lot of homosexual, quote, occultists. They're not occult scientists because I don't think we have that many, but who are involved in the occult scientists. They tend to be more mystically and pagan based. But, it's a big part, and this happened with the Wicca movement, who went from, because of the sexuality involved, and the heterosexuals, of course, rejecting all that as is typically female, was grasped upon by the gay and lesbian community because they're into that. And they had no problems doing that. They were doing that anyway. But it is interesting. But if you go to other groups, they are not very open. As I said, you've got these right-wing Republican types. Swingers are very conservative, weird people. They want to fuck everybody. But their viewpoints and what they accept is very bizarre. And there's a whole ritual thing like in prisons, which is acceptable and not. It's a very strange world out there. But what we need, is there a connection? Is something chemically happened within particularly gay people that they somehow embrace this thinking or in some way have some natural abilities that I speak of? Or is it the fact that, well, he's gay and he's psychic, we don't really care because he's weird anyway. If you're psychic and you're normal, well, you're a freak. You're going to, you can't believe in that stuff. What's wrong with you? But if you're gay, well, you're already bent. Who cares? So I don't really know. But it's certainly interesting because there is a huge amount of alternative. Well, of course, occultism accepts alternative people and always has. So it's a place for homosexuals to be able to hide in and do practices under the guise of magic that they couldn't normally. I mean, Aleister Crowley was famous for this, who was a hardcore homosexual, yet within his magical practices was able to kind of get away with it. You got to remember, until 1969, it was illegal to be a homosexual in the UK, and you had a 20-year prison sentence or injection castration. I mean, this is pretty serious stuff, particularly in a society that is kind of homosexual in their nature and kind of presents that lifestyle to people in all these private schools with a bunch of young kids, all horny, who have nothing else to fuck but themselves. So these all-male private schools, and it is a very much of a British tradition to be involved in child homosexuality, but apparently frowned upon after that. Who knows? We all know how fairly gay British society is. So all of that is something to be considered here, as I said, of the bigger picture here. And why is this? So, it is fascinating. And dropping the whole gay thing, as I said, getting back to the spirit communication, well, if that's the case, but, the problem is when you get a stupid little kid like this or a delusional gay person, they're not asking any really serious questions that you can learn from. So you'd have to take a tool like this, and you'd have to put together questions which you could gain something about the afterlife, how they can help, all sorts of things. You want to be very direct here and ask these spirits, hey, can you help me? Can you get me the lottery numbers? Can you protect me? I don't, telling somebody that their mother wore pink and went to the Rotary Club, so what? They're just telling you a statement of fact. Now, how they can interact within this world is what we want to know. And, of course, they never get into this because, nobody cares about that. It's just pop garbage written by a bunch of scumbucket television people. So it's the same old story. And when if they're interviewing a person who is serious, they'll knock you down quick. We don't want to hear serious stuff. Didn't your mommy like pizza on Wednesday? That sounds good on the air. Well, why don't we ask you that question? And then he'll answer it and you'll say, yeah, that's amazing. That's how they do it in Hollywood. So, So you run into all these types of situations, and I'm not telling you this from secondhand knowledge. I've been through this and interviewed by the BBC, CNN on radio shows. I've done commercials. I've even worked as a producer for periods of time. So I know exactly what goes on and how fake everything is. So from first-hand experience. So all of these things are realities as an occult scientist you want to think about. But, what are the practical uses? The fact that a spirit is around you and you can gain certain information about past events, can they help you with present events and future events? That's the question. And, of course, they never deal with that here again. So here we go. So other than watching this a couple of times to just see it for what it is and get the informational factor of it, there's absolutely nothing to value from this. And I find this Tyler Henry, this kitty, personally, to be annoying and stereotypical of the strange little gay kid that I find the show kind of boring. So, but like everything, I recommend people take it for a test drive yourself, at least get the basic knowledge of what's there, and then go from there. But think about the bigger picture. And as usual, there is no reality until the occult scientist creates it. Question everything. Believe nothing. Question all authority. Learn it, be it, do it, and let the guild be your guide.